And so good morning, everybody.
This meeting is being recorded.
This meeting is being recorded. I got it. Perfect. So I'm Jeanette Proulx, and I am currently on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And today we know this land as Ottawa. I have Mi'kmaq roots that originate from Lennox Island First Nation, which is located on what we call Prince Edward Island. I'm really grateful to be here with you because this is an important topic. And in discussing this, we can really grow in a good direction. We can create positive and helpful relationships, even during those tough situations. I'm also really excited to have been invited to talk to you about courageous conversations. So I work for the Canada School of Public Service, and this is one of the topics that I facilitate on. And I find that every time I do this workshop, I learn more. I'm encouraged by the desire of so many of us to make a difference. And that's really the essence of courageous conversations, is making a difference. Um, I just want to give you a little bit of information. We're going to be here for 2.5 hours. We're going to take a break partway through, a 10-minute break to stretch your legs and such. But please make yourselves comfortable and take personal breaks as you need. I'm really thankful for your interest in this important topic. It's not easy to have these conversations, but it's definitely worthwhile. You and your associate or your partner, your whole team are going to benefit from these conversations. It's something that is going to build and strengthen relationships, and you're going to generate confidence for all involved. Your own confidence, the more that you have these conversations, the more you're going to feel comfortable doing them. And also the person that you're speaking with is also going to grow their own confidence. They're going to have that trust in you, that you have their best interests at heart. And also their confidence in you as a leader is going to grow. And that leadership role, whether you're actually their manager or a colleague, you are leading this conversation. Yeah, so these conversations are really based on trust and openness. So keep this in mind as you consider these conversations as we go through the material today. And think about some of the conversations that you're maybe planning to have or avoiding having. Some of that is going to help you put what we're talking about into context. I also hope that through our session that you're going to feel comfortable to share your opinions and your experiences related to this topic. That's where our best learning is going to come. And I really hope that you enjoy this session. Amory, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Elder Larry Grant is having very difficult computer issues this morning, and we can't get him online. So I don't know. I just wanted to maybe throw it out. Is there anybody in the group today who might want to start us off with an opening prayer this morning? You know, no pressures. Throw everyone on the spot. Seeing no hands. Okay. Oh, yes. Good morning, Terry.
Terry, you're on mute.
Need to unmute you, Terry.
Okay, I'm just switching to my pronouns here. I forgot to do that. Sorry about that. She and her and my ancestral name. I should put that in, right? So are we all here today? Are we waiting for any more?
There will be some more people trickling in, but we're gonna get everything started up.
Okay. Okay, good morning. Good morning to the facilitator. Good morning to the organizers. I raise my hands to each and every one of you for coming here prepared to do the good work that we're about to do today. Please allow me to open this virtual floor with a welcome, welcoming us all into this circle to challenge our vulnerabilities and to honor who we are and where we come from. We are diverse, but we are all unique. We are the same, different. We all have like minds to want to do well in this world. I ask whomever we believe in, our grandfathers, grandmothers, ancestors, our higher powers, to come join us today and join us in these teachings that we'll embark on at the end of today and any other steps we take when we move forward. Thank you for allowing me to open the platform today.
Thank you very much, Terry. And again, yeah, thank you. I was about to put my best foot forward there, but I could not have done it as elegantly as Terry just did. So I appreciate that, Terry. Thank you. And now we'll pass it back over to Jeanette, and she can get us started on today's workshop, Courageous Conversations. Thank you, Jeanette.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. And Amory, if Elder Larry does make it, let me know and we'll pause. And if he has any words to share with us, I would love that too.
Absolutely. I'll keep my eye on the participant list and let you know. Thank you.
Perfect. And Terry, I really appreciate you taking the opportunity to welcome us in that way. It was wonderful. Thank you. So what we're going to do here with Courageous Conversations, I'm hoping that as much as you're comfortable to share throughout, I would love that. Some of the, I need to move that there, and here we go. Yes, our objectives for this session. Courageous Conversations are all about engaging in an open dialogue with a partner on topics that can be difficult to broach. It might be something on discrimination, difference of opinions, inequalities, or maybe we have different viewpoints on something. We're going to discuss some of our best techniques to have safe, open discussions on topics that we may feel are difficult. Keep in mind that the same principles that we're going to talk about through here, while we're focused on the work context, the professional relationships that we have, the same principles can apply to our personal lives. Our emotions might be different. We're going to talk about that aspect too. And I hope that you're going to feel comfortable to share some scenarios that you've experienced, keeping in mind always the privacy of those involved. Sometimes there might be a relationship that, or a situation in that relationship that's weighing on you. And a courageous conversation might be exactly what's going to be helpful in that moment. It could also be maybe you're feeling taken advantage of. Maybe you have a question that you're afraid to ask, not to ask the question, but to get the answer. You might not, you might be expecting that the answer is going to be what you don't want to hear. But a conversation where you speak up and express how you feel, where you provide an opening for the other person to share it, can really relieve the weight that you're carrying around. And it can also refresh the relationship. So courageous conversations are all about learning. Learning about yourself, learning about your colleague or your partner, learning about the truth of the matter. And here, the tricky part here is that you're going to learn about your truth and their truth. And then that's sometimes where some of that difficulty can arise. But courageous conversations are especially about producing results and strengthening the relationship. So the objective of this session really fit well with the mission of the First Nations Public Service Secretariat, which is to strengthen and enhance capacity in First Nations communities and organizations. You need to have courageous conversations in order to fulfill your responsibilities. So today, for the next 2 hours or so, we're going to specifically discuss why it's important to have these conversations, how to enter them, what are some things that you can do to prepare for them. We're going to talk about the AIR model, which is going to help us in having the conversations, flowing through the conversations safely for us and for the other person. And so we can do it effectively so that the outcome is constructive and positive. And then we'll talk a little bit about fearless advice and faithful implementation, which for many of us is part of our responsibilities. And we'll get to that shortly too. One of the things that we need to take a look at is our current challenges. And through this session, I hope that you're going to consider your current challenges. I won't make you share anything that you don't want to, or that you feel is private information. That's really part of the relationship based on trust. So keep that in mind all the time. But try to view those situations that are on your mind with this new information, and see if it can maybe give a light to a new perspective for you. You might also want to think about some current situations or challenges that you're currently dealing with, or maybe that you're anticipating dealing with, or that you're dreading dealing with. There are lots of kinds of conversations where we feel like we need courage. Situations, where we have to work through a conflict, or where we have to confront someone, that can really unnerve us. Sometimes it might be having to deliver serious or unpleasant news. We may fear hurting the relationship or disappointing someone. So I would like to ask, what are some of the types of conversations where you feel you need courage? Tell me a little bit. Are they professional based? Are they who might be involved? What are the topics that cause you that weight? Feel free to respond using that chat box as well.
I'll kind of get it started, Jeanette, for sure. Having seen your presentation a few times and having had a chance to kind of reflect on some of this stuff, it's for sure, I think some of those big, like, difficult conversations that I've encountered are when things aren't quite working really well as a team. Like, there's, we've got goals, we've got objectives, and currently, the team isn't kind of going in the flow that we want it to go into to meet those objectives. And then it's, how do we start to have that conversation about bringing the team back to like a centering spot so that we can refocus and start to work our way towards actually completing and getting to those goals and objectives at the end of the day.
Oh, Amory, that's a really a good example, because you're trying to get everybody going in the same direction. And when that happens, you can really create a lot of momentum. And the tricky part about something like that is, even if there's just one person who's not fully on board, it can really slow things. And the energy that one person is taking away from the momentum can be challenging too. Thanks for sharing that. Some of the things that that might be important for you, keep them in mind, and think about how you can approach them. Maybe there's something here that we're going to be able to help you out with. With respect to our current challenges, another aspect has to do with our reactions to these conversations. Sometimes we might become defensive if someone's coming to us and we're not prepared for it. So maybe our voices are going to raise. Sometimes that happens involuntarily. We might not even be aware that we're getting mad or that we're getting louder and faster. We might not be aware of what that sounds like to somebody else. And so pausing, making sure that our emotions feel comfortable for us can be really helpful. And I'm sure there are people, some of you who might, through those difficult conversations, shut down or become quiet. Those one-word answers that yes, no, no, no. That can also be a hint that we're not having, that we're not in our comfort zone. For me, when I'm having conversations where I'm not in that comfort zone, my biggest hesitancy in these conversations is I have the fear of losing emotional control. And for me personally, it's not that anger, but it's more that choke in my throat, that like big lump that's there. And I'm thinking, oh, I can feel it. Can they see anything? And then if the conversation continues without me being able to regain my composure, I get that feeling that I'm going to cry. My eyes might get watery, and then, oh, I just have allergies. I'm fine, right? It's uncomfortable, but I do. The good news is you can gain that composure with experience. And when I say that I've gained experience in that way, it's also through the aging process. I kind of understand a little bit more about relationships and that moment in time. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. So the emotional or physical reactions that you have, sometimes having some perspective about that and seeing where maybe not everybody sees that. Maybe it's your perspective. I'm not saying it's comfortable, but to not get caught up in your reactions is going to help you gain that composure that you need to go forward. So I hope that you're going to consider a situation for yourself as we go through this content. And if you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear about some situations that you're experiencing or have experienced. Even if it's a hypothetical situation, if that's easier for you, that's great. I hope that we can make this the next 2 hours together a little bit more personal. You're going to get the most out of this the more that you share, the more that you participate in the conversation. But I'm going to share an example of a difficult conversation that I've had just to get things going a little bit. And it's something that now that I have perspective, it's been a couple of months that I dealt with this, so I'm okay with it now. But at the time, it felt a lot harder than it certainly feels now. But I have a small side business, and I make reclaimed mittens. The kind that Bernie Sanders. Do you remember that? Yeah, mine though have leather palms, and sometimes I put fur around the wrists, so they're quite nice. And it's just a small side business. I make them when I can through the year, and then through the holidays, I like to go to some shows, craft fairs or craft shows, and sell them there. So this year in November, I was able to go to 2 shows, and I did all right. But then the shows in December were canceled. I was talking with a colleague about this, and she was really interested in the mittens that I make. And we were talking and stuff. She asked if she could buy some, so I thought, yeah, well, sure. Long story, she ended up buying 4, and it wasn't a custom order. I had the colors and sizes that she wanted for herself, her husband, and their 2 kids. So we agreed. I have a standard price. We agreed on that. And I even delivered them to her. But when I went to deliver them to her, she wasn't home. It was her husband who was there. So he said, "Oh, yeah, I'll give them to her and she'll pay you next time she sees you." So I thought, well, okay. It wasn't what I was expecting or what we agreed on, but this is my coworker. I didn't really think too much into it. No, and normally I wouldn't leave without payment. That's just part of the business. But this was my coworker. I knew her, and I didn't think anything of it. We had talked about this informally, but 2 paydays, so that's almost a month went by, and I didn't get paid. Now she doesn't like e-transfer and minor complications like that. All of those conversations, very casual, like, "Oh, I'll pay you. Let's get together and we'll meet," and nothing. And so that's where it started, because there wasn't anything concrete. That's where the difficulty started to arise for me. I'm going to pause here now in my story. But I'd like to hear from you what your reactions would be if you were in this situation. Anyone?
Hey, I think that's really frustrating and kind of annoying and rude, actually. You provided everything that you had sort of promised, and they fell short of keeping up their end of things. So, and you're more than patient. So I feel like that's really frustrating, and I'd definitely be annoyed by it.
Yeah. I'm glad to know, Melissa, thank you very much, that it wasn't just me, that it was like we had an agreement. We knew what was supposed to happen. And Terry, you're so right. A slow buildup of anger. At first, I just thought, well, okay, this is someone that I know and I trust, so she's not going to not pay me. So it was that slow buildup, because at first I wasn't. It just seemed, well, okay, not ideal, but I'll go with it. After the first payday, I thought that's kind of strange. By the second one, I'm thinking like, okay, it's thankfully it wasn't my only source of income. But imagine if it was, would she have still treated me that way? Sue, you're right. It's always difficult to do business with family and friends. I've also found it difficult to follow up if I buy or pick something up for a friend and it takes them a while to pay.
The recording has stopped. This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, I'll trust that Callan is on that. So yeah, it was definitely an uncomfortable situation. I think it doesn't have to be difficult. If everybody just does what they say they're going to do, it should all be fine. And it was a little tricky, I would say. But thanks for sharing that with me. Finally, I gathered my courage and I decided I'm going to phone her and I'm going to lay it out. I practiced. I knew what I was going to say. What should have been a simple transaction became a difficult situation for me. And the conversation we had, it was uncomfortable, but I made it through. The next day, in fact, because I told her I didn't want it to go on that much longer. I'll meet her where she wants the next day. We met for coffee and I got a check. And even when I got the check, I was happy, but I thought, why? Where's the cash? But it all worked out. So the big thing for me in there was that phone call that I had to make. In retrospect, I think if I had made that phone call 2 weeks within the first 2 weeks of meeting to give her the mittens, it probably wouldn't have been that difficult on me. And I don't think it was difficult at all on her. I don't think she even had an idea of the stress this was causing me. So that's a big lesson learned. Now, when I have that kind of situation again, I'm just going to get in there, gather myself, get in there, get it done, and then I'll be fine. Big lesson learned for me there. But the other thing that's interesting about that situation is that the challenges varies from person to person. She was in this situation with me. She was not challenged at all. For me, I had a month almost of like, oh gosh, what's going to happen and stuff like this. Why did I do that? So the whole idea that some of us don't like to talk about money, others avoid talking about emotions. Each one of us is going to approach these topics in our own way and based on our own comfort level. The good news is that our comfort level increases with our experiences. So the more we do this, the more we're going to learn and the better we get at it. Yeah, let's take a look at some conversations that we have. There are a whole lot of different types of conversations that we have to deal with in our regular professional and personal lives. On top of that, personality types, personality preferences, emotions, all of that can add to the challenge. Some of these conversations, though, I like that little picture in the top right, happy, happy, joy, joy. Have you ever had one of those happy, happy conversations where everything went perfectly and you thought, wow, that was easy, and then nothing changed, nothing came out of it? And it's like, oh, I didn't get the result that I wanted. Yeah, those can be hard on us. The confusing conversations where sometimes the person that you're talking with is kind of twisting things, or it's just no flow to it. So by the end of it, you don't even know what the topic is anymore. That can be hard. Those circular conversations where you keep going around and around. Sometimes I get into those and I think I don't even know if we're agreeing or if we're disagreeing. I like that one on the left-hand side where one person's looking at the item and sees 4, the other person says, no, it's 3. What do you do when you're both correct? What happens in those conversations? So courageous conversations can include all these different types of situations. And the essence of a courageous conversation is really requiring that you're going to be direct and not fearful. Having an openness to learn is really important. The objective is for each person in that conversation to express their views openly and truthfully. Rather than being defensive or laying blame, that can really hurt the relationship that that you need to get in with that person. So a courageous conversation allows you to tackle the difficult issues, allows you to create a relationship where there's learning, where you're going to grow from it, and where you're going to build the respect on both sides. Sometimes the conversations, we avoid them because we don't want it to go badly, or we're uncomfortable because of our emotions or what their emotions are going to bring to it. So all of this, it really highlights the idea that we need to prepare for these conversations. We need to maybe practice. That could be in front of the mirror. It could be with our dog or our cat. But actually doing it out loud can have really good results for us. It takes confidence, and that confidence, we're going to be able to build it when we are practicing, when we feel, for me, when that lump in my throat, when I don't feel that anymore, I'm feeling better about going in the conversation. And then there's some skill to learn too. We're going to talk about some of the different ways that we can prepare and build our skill in going into these conversations. Building an atmosphere of trust and respect is it's so important. Establishing a culture where we deal with these issues, it happens over time, but it starts with your next conversation. Whatever that the reputation that you're creating for yourself, it happens at each time that you're having that you're in that experience. The other thing is, for the other person, we might be changing a long history of the norms. If it's someone that you work with, or maybe someone who works for you, maybe the norms that they've experienced are, well, around here, we just sweep that under the rug. If we disagree, we just let it go. When you're tackling these conversations, when you're taking them on, it's really an investment in ourselves, in our teams, in our communities. So don't think of it as just a 15-minute conversation. Think of it as a start of a way forward, or that relationship building. You're creating your reputation, and people are going to know you as someone who's strong, who deals with issues, who builds relationships. So some of the benefits of courageous conversations, all of that and more. You're going to increase awareness and understanding. You're going to gain that confidence for all. You're setting a new path for new discovery in your relationships. People are going to know that you don't hide from the truth or from the difficulties that a situation brings. You deal with them respectfully and together. And the good part about that is that if something else comes up, you're going to be called on, or people are going to know when they have something coming up with you, this is going to be okay. We're in good hands here. Do you know people that are like that in conversations? Have you experienced that before? I think sometimes we might remember a good conversation, and if we keep that as an example for ourselves, set that as our goal or our benchmark, it can be really helpful for us. So let's take a look at some of the ways that conversations can present themselves. Some conversations are challenging, in part because of the details of the conversation. And some people are going to pick up on certain details, and they might derail the conversation. So here are some statements, some declarations that could potentially derail the whole conversation. So some of these statements containing the words always or never, they're commonly used, but they're not always true. Sometimes we use always and never and when we're arguing in order to emphasize our position, but these can be seen by the other person as maybe accusatory or argumentative. these are the ways that people, that conversations get derailed. Some of us who hear these statements, we're going to take them literally as factual truth, while the person who's saying them just might be expressing or venting their frustration or their anger. So the reason that this can be problematic is that they can create misunderstandings. It might be true in that moment for us, like we're expressing everything that we have, and then somebody else is like, nope, that's impossible. That is not even close to the truth. So just take, for example, that first statement, they never fix my problem. You know, we can maybe be a little bit more specific here and say, IT didn't fix my problem this morning. If that's the case, then we can put a little bit of perspective on it. We can calm ourselves down, because if we say they never fix my problem, do we really mean they've never ever fixed a problem? And if that's the case, like there's another problem here that needs to be fixed, and it's not my computer, it's the relationship or the processes, right? So sometimes if you hear these statements, one thing it can help you, if you're hearing the statement, it can be a cue to what the other person is feeling. And that's really good for you to know as a leader, because now you have two situations to manage, and you can do it in two separate situations. One, you can deal with the issue, and two, you can deal with the feelings. We're going to talk a little bit more about separating the conversation in those two areas just in a bit. I'd like to have some conversation though about when we're getting into these conversations. I'd like to hear from you. Why me? Why do you have to get into these conversations? There are no wrong answers here. I'd like to hear from you. Why is it your responsibility to get into these conversations, to start them? Oh, Terry?
In my mind, I'm thinking sometimes we need to keep the lines of communication open, and there may be challenges in keeping the lines of communication open effectively. And I'm thinking because, and in my own experience as an Indigenous woman coming from a trauma-informed background, not blaming cultural genocide and the repercussions of that dark history, having the fear of knowing how to have a courageous conversation. Did that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. Thank you very much for that. It is something that we're going to need to take on. It's not going to be easy, but if it's on our minds, think of how the other person is going to feel when we take that step to have the conversation. They might be really appreciative of it. They might be thinking, thank goodness they're taking this on, because I wouldn't have been able to go another day. Caroline, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, my name is Caroline. I just wanted to say, as an Indigenous person, usually leadership just kind of befalls on you. It's in our Indigenous culture. It's not like you're not like chosen. You know, it kind of like the role kind of like chooses you. You know, like a person can't say, oh, my son is going to be in leadership, you know, and, you know, people recognize that person as having like leadership skills, and, you know, some and talking about emotions, you know, emotions are quite fleeting, and they change all the time, right? So whether, you know, depending on your circumstance, your own like feelings, your own healing, sometimes it gets you in a lot of trouble. That's what I think, you know. So I think you know, you have to kind of um, you know, just make sure that you're not coming from a feeling. So yeah, just thought I'd add that.
Caroline, you're so true there. Absolutely. And I liked what you said about your feelings as being fleeting, because they do change. In the moment, they might be huge for us, but with a little perspective, a little distance, we might be able to control that. Is that what you were meaning?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. It changes all the time, right? So, you know, one day I may, you know, love you, and one day I may not. You know, that's being a little bit extreme, but yeah.
But thanks for sharing that. I think it's really
Okay.
true. And if we can get a hold of that part of ourselves, that can really help us through.
Yes.
Thank you.
Merci.
And Hazel says to build better communication with those I work with and work for. Absolutely. If and look, most of the time we don't get to choose who we're working with or who we're working for. That's just part of the job. And if we want that job, that's just there. But if we build that better communication, it's going to help us for the next time that it comes up. And there's always a next time. There's these things have a way um, to come up, because we all, in especially in our work, we are. For many of us, we're required to share our opinions. We have to look at ways to build that consensus. And that means saying things that might be unpopular sometimes. Craig, I love that because of my job title. Yeah, you know, sometimes it is just the job that we have, it is part of our responsibilities. And I'm really encouraged to know that you take that seriously, because a lot of people might just avoid it, might just think, no, if I just take the long way around, I'll be fine and stuff. But it is part of your job title. It is part of your responsibilities. And that's really important. If Is that James? Uh, I love that. If we don't start the conversation, no one else will start it. And I'm sure that you know of situations where the situation has gone on way too long. For me, I left mine um, about 6 weeks. If I had just dealt with it in that first week, if I had gotten on the phone the next day, I would have saved myself so much anguish. And Hazel says, also because most people don't feel safe enough to talk about their deepest fears or needs, because some people don't want to listen. Yeah. And here, one of the things that we need to understand is that because it's our responsibility, because we want to make a difference, because we are trying to build relationships, part of that has to do with creating that safe environment where people can know that they can be vulnerable with us, where we're not going to judge, where we're going to let them express themselves. So I mentioned to you that I get that lump in my throat and my eyes get all teary. And I remember early in my career, someone saying that, oh, you cannot cry at work. Do not cry. It's going to stay with you forever. Well, I do tend to cry a lot, not as much as I used to, but I remember once I was emotional in front of my director. It was for me a really big deal. I can't even remember what it was now. But I remember the reaction that I got from him, and it stayed with me for well longer than the actual situation did. He just he took a box of tissues and he put it just kind of in between us. And I was still so embarrassed that I'm crying in front of my director. And he said, don't feel bad about that. You're just showing me that this is important to you. It's got to come out of us somehow, and this is your way. I felt so good about that. I felt so good about myself that he understood that I'm not a crybaby. I'm not crying just because. I'm crying because this is hurting me. It's important to me, and it's big in my life. That was really helpful to me. The next question, why should I bother? And I think it has to do with a lot of these things that we're talking about. If I don't bother, I'm not going to make a difference. If I don't create this opportunity for us to have conversation, to communicate, to build that relationship, maybe we're just going to continue along the same way. And then where's that going to get us in the long run? Do my emotions get in the way of these conversations? You know what? Our emotions. I loved what Caroline said about them being fluid. They're going to shift and change. Right now, they're really important for us. Maybe next week we will forget that that it was so bothersome, so difficult for us. But in that moment, sometimes it can be hard. We can't get rid of our emotions. There are our barometer. They're telling us what's good, what we like. They're telling us what needs to change. I like that last bullet, leading by example. Let me see. Sue says, I think it's important to have established trust and respect with the person you're speaking with also. It's essential. It's in that leadership role, whether it's in your job title, whether it's because these people report to you, or just because of the nature of who you are, you're leading others. You can't lead people without that trust and respect. Thanks very much for that, Sue. Did you want to expand on that a bit?
Just in my experience, I think that helps to helps the first person in terms of comfort, and if they know that you're approaching it from a good place with them, that from something that's genuine, you know, you're trying to improve something or it's concern for them or something like that, I think it helps a lot in how they receive it. And it may not be initial, there may be an initial, you know, reactionary response, but you know, if they reflect upon it a bit, then often I've had people come back to me before, you know, when they've kind of, once they've had a chance to think about what we've talked about, and they kind of realize, you know, maybe they were too emotional, and then, you know, it leads to actually another good discussion. Maybe difficult, but it's a good discussion. So
I love that, Sue. And I think that that's really nice to know that it doesn't have to be just that one conversation, that it's the start of a relationship. And if you're thinking about that relationship and communication, it is the trust has to be there. Otherwise, they won't open up to you. They're not going to think that you care or that you have their interests in mind. they're not going to want to participate in the conversation. They might say, yeah, agree with everything, and then you're going to get into that kind of situation where nothing changes in the end. They're just trying to get it out of there as fast as they can. And if you are able to create that trust and let them know that, the organization is important, that's what we're here for. But the organization is nothing without the people, without the relationships that we have. And so building that and then using that to support the organization, that's where we're really going to see some growth, some benefits. Hazel says also to see through, through another person's eyes, and to try to see what he or she sees, listen, learn. So true. I think that that's one of the big parts about the conversations that we get into when we're just looking at from our perspective. And one of the things that we need to know when we're taking these conversations on, we should actually be talking just a little bit and get the other person to do all of the talking. And we're going to talk about how we get to do that. In part, the reason why we're going to listen more and talk less is to establish that trust, to get them to know that I want to hear you, I want to learn from you, I want to get all of the information. If we approach these conversations as though I have all the answers, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to fix this, the other person is not going to open up. The other person is actually going to shut down when they think that they can't add anything, that we're not looking at it from their perspective, that our way is the only way. We should just write a memo, send that to them, and then be done with it. What we're talking about here, though, in these conversations is really building that relationship, hearing from them what's important to them. There's a certain amount of sharing that we have to do, but the likelihood that they already have that understanding is pretty big. When we're telling them that this is the way we do things here, that's usually evident in the first week on the job. That, and I'm not meaning to say that this is the way we do it around here and we're never going to change. It's not that. If they are maybe misbehaving, if they're doing something contrary to policy, or if they're not fulfilling their responsibilities, they probably have a good idea of that. Especially when you've called them into, hey, let's have a conversation. They might be thinking, oh, I know what they want to talk to me about. And they're going to go through the conversation in their mind. So when we come to them, we can get them to do a lot of the talking and then guide them to the outcome. That's going to build the trust. That's going to let them know that they have a voice in the relationship, that it's not just because I'm the director, I'm the manager, I'm the leader here, that it's going to be my way. We all have something to learn. And we're going to do that by listening. Looking at the truth together, team, and looking at the challenges that are coming, basically. Yeah, the goals of the organization should be, everybody should be aware of what the goals are, what the vision is, and how we're going to get there. So when we're having these conversations, just getting someone to open up and to understand that, okay, this is what I need to do. you're just guiding them to that. They probably have a good idea. Well, thank you, Hazel. Having these courageous conversations are really important when we're talking about the why we have to do it. If we don't do it, who will? If it's your responsibility, if you're in that role, that's you're creating your reputation. You're creating the basis of the relationship going forward. And that has all to do with why should I bother? Soon you might be looking at this in a way, in such a way that that you want to have these conversations, that you want to strengthen the relationship. They're not going to be that difficult. They still might need some courage to broach certain topics. That might not go away, but your ability to do that is, and your comfort in doing that is going to be really, really strengthened. And some of the other things that we're going to talk about, we're going to take a break very shortly. But when you handle these conversations well, when you stand tall and you own your part in that relationship, you're going to strengthen and thrive in that work space. On the other hand, if you don't handle them, if you don't take them on, the relationship is going to deteriorate. You're going to see the cracks in the organization start to become huge. And then that's when difficulties are going to arise in so many different ways. Does anybody want to share before we go for break? Are you on board with taking on these conversations? Great. Okay, good. Well, when we get back, we're going to take a look at how to prepare for these conversations and what you can do about them. Is a 10-minute break good? Okay. And I have these 50 ways to take a break. You might not have time in 10 minutes to take them all on, but maybe there's something there that you're going to want to take a look at in order to do that. I have 36 past. How about if we come back at 10 to the hour? Is that good? That's just a little bit more than 10 minutes.
That sounds good, Jeanette. Perfect.
Thanks a lot, everybody. And I really appreciate your participation in that conversation, even by the chat that's working fine. Thank you. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Perfect. I'm going to go refresh my coffee. Thank you, Jeanette.
I'm going to do that too.
This meeting is being recorded.
Thanks for that, Kaylin. And Kaylin also wrote in the chat box that you will see a SurveyMonkey link there. And if you can provide your comments on that survey about the event today, and also what you'd like to see for future events, that'd be awesome. So you can click that link now and save it on your desktop for when when we're done here. And also she wrote that the meeting materials will be circulated after this session, along with the recording link and that survey link. Wonderful. And Craig, I'm really glad that you like that poster there. You'll have access to this and all of the other slides, so feel free to share them if you wish. So now we're going to take a look at discovering possibilities. In preparing for a conversation, you're really going to need to ask yourself some questions. first off, what's your objective? What are you hoping to get out of the conversation? And is it realistic? Sometimes you might have to really think about this. Um, if the answers to those questions aren't ideal, you might want to think, okay, do I need to have this conversation now? If you don't know, for example, what your objective is, hold off on the conversation. If you don't know if what your objective is, if it's realistic or not, make sure that you take a look at defining that and seeing if it is realistic. Otherwise, it just might be one of those circular conversations where you're not going to get the results. You might put yourself or the other person through some stress for what, and that what you need to be aware of. You need to know and to be able to explain to the person what it is that your objective is here. The next question is, what's your starting point? What's required of you in order to start that? How did you get there? What's required of the others involved in that conversation? Find out for yourself, what are you dealing with? Maybe the past experiences that they've had with you or with others, maybe in your position or similar positions. Are you dealing with some emotions or some history? And this isn't to deter you from taking on the conversation. It's in order for you to determine what you need in order to get ahead of those maybe those barriers or those obstacles. How are you going to set the stage for that new way forward? What are you going to do? What's your expected outcome? And how are you going to make sure that the other person is aware of that? The next question is, what are your assumptions? Are they valid? Has anything changed? Where did you come up with those assumptions? Are they affecting the relationship, or are they affecting you? And chances are, if they are, and their assumptions, they might be negatively affecting you. And so just checking that and figuring out what it is, and seeing if you can eliminate the assumptions and go forward with the factual details that you have. That's going to be really helpful if you can let the other person know that this is the information that I have. And if you share that information with them, they can validate it. They can say, oh, yes, that's true. I remember that. Or they're going to say, no, that's the old version. Or I had never seen that before. And that's going to really help you create the way forward together. Can I set aside uninterrupted private time with this person? Really important. On top of that, do you have time to prepare for the conversation? Do you have everything that you need in order to do it? Do you have that physical or emotional space for it? And it might be on, if you're working remotely still, there might be, you might have to do it virtually. And what does that look like for the other person? Are they in an environment where they can't have a private conversation? Or they're maybe not prepared for that private conversation? You want to make sure that you can set them up for a good conversation with you. So that they're not just surprised by the topics that you're bringing up for them. Also, are you willing to listen? Are you ready to listen? Are you willing to take this on? Are you ready for the possibilities that you might hear? Are you feeling open and safe and ready to be vulnerable? When you're going to listen to the other person, you're going to want to listen for more than just the content, just the words or the story that the other person is bringing to you. You're also going to want to listen for their emotion. A lot of what you're going to be able to hear there is how important is this for them? What are they feeling through this? Also, listen for their intent. Do they have an honorable intention here? Do they want to go forward in the right direction? This is really going to help you understand the other person. That's the basis of the relationship. And when we talked about trust and respect and openness, this is how you're going to get it. When you're setting the stage and letting them know what you want and why you want it, you're now going to be able to have productive conversations. And a bit of a caution here. If you're feeling ready, strong, I'm going to take this, I know where I'm going, you might also need to see, are you feeling too strong? Are you feeling like you have the answers and you're ready to rumble? That might not be the right time for a courageous conversation. You need to be prepared but open for what may present itself. You need to be ready to listen and to learn. Otherwise, your partner might put some barriers up. They just might close up and not want to share. If they think you have all the answers, they're not going to want to talk. They're not going to feel heard. Another thing that I learned along the way, but this isn't part of the content or the theory of this content, you have to like the person that you're conversing with. You have to honestly like them. You have to want what's best for them. You have to value them and respect them. When I first learned this, I was really blown away. But what do you do when you don't like the person, right? That's the first thing that came to me. And this is, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a grade 2 teacher. And the idea, I don't have kids, so the idea of spending the day with 25, 7 or 8 year olds, that's like, why would somebody choose that? But she loves her job. So one, probably August or September, I asked her, I said, what, and I was really being sincere here, but I said, you can't possibly like all those kids that come into your class on that first day. Some might be brats or annoying. Like, what do you do when you don't like a kid? And what she replied to me is, it was so eye-opening for me. But what she does is when the kids come in, she focuses on one thing about each kid that she likes. Maybe it's their smile, maybe it's how they sit or laugh or talk. It could be anything, but she focuses on that one thing and just that one thing that she likes. And she said, everybody's got something that you're gonna like. And because she's focused on that, after a week or two, it grows into other things. It grows into her like and her joy in spending time with all of the kids. She forgets who was annoying or bratty. So that one thing that you focus on is going to open up the possibility to enjoy the other qualities. So I've tried that. It's a really good trick. It works on adults as well. And it really helped me change my opinion. I found it was really helpful because we don't always get to choose who we interact with. And the day sure is a whole lot better when we don't, when we're not focused on the other person's faults or annoyances. So keep that in mind. Um, Let me check the chat box here because Hazel says, gain knowledge so that you, where am I here? Gain knowledge so that you can take the next step when you have gained the wisdom. I love that. You know, because you're starting the relationship with them, and every opportunity that you have with them, it's the start of the relationship. It's going to lead you to that next step. I love that, Hazel. What if there's a lack of communication? How would you approach that? If there's no fears, but they don't, they communicate or they go through someone else. Okay, so we're talking about a couple of things here, and I want to get to this because that's really important. And so thank you very much, Hazel, for these questions. So first off, if there is a lack of communication in the environment, if we don't regularly communicate, or if it's just very factual, we can start just through our own actions to change that, to change the culture. The culture of a workplace. It does involve everybody, the leaders at the top, as well as all of the people that are in that culture. But it does, ideally, the tone from the top that's what's going to lead the culture. But everybody can add to that culture. And if we start with a good practice like open communication and sharing, and putting other people's needs, having that at the forefront of our interactions, nobody's going to say no to that. We can be the tone that leads this forward. And that's really important. Before long, that the leader at the top is going to get hold of this, and they're going to move that forward as well. They're not going to be able to stop it. It's a good practice, and it's going to lead them to their end result faster and better and more correctly. So sometimes it does feel like you're swimming upstream, that you're not going with the flow. But the tides do change. You are going to be able to get people on board with that. That can be one way to, if there is a lack of communications, you can be the start of that change. And so that's one of the things that I would approach that with. I'd like to hear from some of you who are in that same situation. If there is a lack of communication in your experiences, what did you do or what can you do? Would anyone like to share? Well, okay, keep that at the back of your mind, because it might be, I don't think it would be easy to shift that culture, but I think it can be shifted. I think people would probably be ready for that shift, and they'll get on board with you. Now, the other part of that, Hazel, really interesting question. What if the person bypasses you and goes to someone else to get information or to share stuff? That can be a big challenge. Does anybody have experience with that one?
I was just going to say, like, having somebody kind of go around you to have that conversation is, I feel, really frustrating. And I've only had it happen a few times, and it turned into a bigger conversation with a whole team of people to kind of get everyone back on track. But yeah, I feel like that's super frustrating. And it doesn't help kind of solve or kickstart that conversation that needs to be had about the topic.
Yeah, I agree with you, Amy. It really it can get toxic if it's left like that. If you're left out, but it's part of your responsibilities. Um, One thing I know, my previous manager did prefer to have direct conversations with somebody, but wouldn't bring you into the conversation at other levels. It was a little bit hard. Where now the manager that I have is a lot more respectful of the team's growth, or even the individual's growth. So if he needs to come to me for information that he needs to bring up to our executive, he brings me into that conversation. He doesn't ask me and then take my information there. He brings me into the conversation. And what I love about that is it's giving me that exposure. It's validating the fact that this is my area of expertise, and I'm comfortable sharing it. Now, the opposite can be true too. Um, uh, if he's not bringing me into those conversations and he's like that middleman, well, that can be hard. Because maybe my area of expertise is he's skewing it through another lens. So one of the things that I've been able to do is to when I feel like I'm being bypassed, I now create that circle. I bring that person in as well as the person that they're bypassing me. So now we're three people talking about it. And what has happened, because this is what happened to with my former manager, is she ended up removing herself from that conversation. That she knew that she wasn't really part of it, so she just let me handle it from there. It was just giving her extra work. Although I think she liked to have her. Maybe her stamp on it, or she liked to be in the know of that. But in the end, it just was really extra work for her. So when I opened the avenue for all of us to consult on it, she moved herself out eventually. But that can be tough. Sue says, what suggestions do you have when you sense the individual does not respect or trust you? That's going to happen too. More specifically, I sometimes find individuals from other organizations can be insistent and not willing to work with me or understand my concerns. That one is a difficult situation that you're in, but it's kind of like one step at a time, one chip. You're breaking down that wall one interaction at a time. So if first off, if they don't respect you or don't trust you, in part, maybe take a look at it as though, what would you do if they did respect you, if they did trust you, and act in that way. So you're going to have all of the confidence going forward, all of the strength and conviction that you would have with somebody that was an ally, someone who was on your side. You go in with that kind of with that armor, or with that strength of character. That's going to slowly break down the barriers. And then if they're openly distrustful, if they're openly disrespecting you, that's a conversation that you can have with them. And it's one of those courageous conversations where you're going to have to prepare yourself to say to them, listen, I feel that there are some issues with our communication. I feel that when you rolled your eyes at me in that meeting, I feel that you were disrespecting me. And then get them to validate what you've seen. First off, if you did approach it that way, and keeping your emotions maybe aside for the moment, acting objectively, they're going to learn to respect you if that's the way that you're acting and reacting with them. But as much as possible, when that happens, particularly early in my career, if I was in that without the experience that I have now, I might have wanted to talk to a coworker about that. In part, I want to find out a little bit more, what should I do here? But the other part, the less kind part, more realistic part, is I wanted to get someone else on my side to say, yeah, they are disrespectful. Yes, now there's two of us against her, and it grows. But maintain your sense of self, and don't get that friction going. Don't feed into that. Try as much as you can to maintain who you are and to act with the honor that you have for yourself, and that's going to come through. Anyone else have suggestions for that one? Sometimes some of these conversations, you might want to write it out first, but I wouldn't put it in an email to them. Have the conversation live. So whether that's virtually, or if you can get together, having a cup of tea, making it a little bit less friction, less tricky there, where there's no room for misinterpretation. That's really going to help you out through those personality situations where maybe you don't see eye to eye, maybe the other person doesn't have the same intentions.
Jeanette, for that example, would you also maybe loop in like your direct reporting manager or something like that? Because you had said, you had created a circle for the conversation before, but if you were looking at something like this, or working with those outside organizations, which Sue had kind of noted in here that, she said sometimes individuals from other organizations are not willing to work with her or listen to her concerns. So would you bring in your manager for that piece as well? That way, the Sue's manager would also be kind of solidifying that relationship with any external, vendors, other staff, or something like that, just to say, hey, I've hired Sue. Sue is here to do this job, and I've got full confidence in her to do this. Would that maybe also then help kickstart those conversations as well? I know these are all difficult, Sue. I can't imagine having to go through a couple of these, but yeah, they're difficult. But I think using that kind of circle loop again that you had talked about, Jeanette, would probably be helpful in that situation as well, I'm thinking.
I like that idea, Amory. I think that if you can get your manager or your team on your side, and then if you have to make a meeting with them, copy or like invite your manager to them if that's the person that they're usually skipping you to go to that person. Bring them into the meeting. And in the meeting invitation, you can be precise. And this is my area of responsibility. I'm looking forward to working with you, and I have the uh, uh, the the responsibility or the authority to make decisions in this regard. Letting them know that, and especially if the manager is copied in on that, they know now that if you didn't have that responsibility, your manager would have corrected you, or you wouldn't have said it if you knew that the manager was, if it's not true that the manager would correct. But so that's a great way to do it. And then I've been in situations where my manager has attended the meeting with me. And the first few minutes, just to introduce, this is Jeanette, and she's got all of the information that we need in order to make these decisions. I'm sure you'll have a great conversation. And Jeanette, if you want, brief me after this, and away he goes. Sue?
I just wanted to maybe give a little bit of additional context because it's kind of related to an email. I checked my emails in the break and I probably shouldn't have, but yeah, it's just without saying too much, sometimes we're asked for information from other organizations and they set a timeline on things and there's a process I need to follow. And even when I explain it and say it's probably going to take at least this, so you may not hear from me, and then to kind of get the email with a highlighted, it's been X many days and I haven't heard back from you, and I kind of set that expectation is a little bit frustrating. Just stuff like that. It's sort of, okay, so did a quick response just saying, yes, as I advised previously, and don't hit send right away and read it over again. Please feel free to call me if you have any questions. So yeah, just sort of that I find that, they have their own goal or something that they want and just really don't appreciate that, maybe we work a little bit differently. And, there's some other steps that we have to go through. So that's kind of been the challenge, even though you explain it, they're sort of still sticking to what is in their interest.
Well, it sounds like that's the right thing to do when you're letting them know these are my timelines. And the problem is some people don't understand what our processes are. And our processes are there for a reason. But if you can explain what those processes are, that without divulging too much of your organizational process, like with not secrecy, but what goes on in your organization can be private. You don't need to share that openly, but letting them know what steps you have to do can help them maybe understand that this is a lengthy process, that you're not just one person deciding for everybody, that there are steps that you have to take. That can maybe help. And then if it's anything more than like a few weeks in that process, you might want to break it down and say, I'll touch base with you in 2 weeks to let you know how things are going. Or let's set a meeting for that 2-week mark. Because sometimes people do wonder, are they not there anymore? Are they, if they don't hear from us for a period of time, they just might need a little bit more convincing. And if that means it's an email that we have to send or a 15-minute appointment with them to let them know, hey, this is what I've done these steps, and now I have this left. So we're still on track for the 14th of the month or whatever it happens to be. Keeping them in the loop can give them that that sense of maybe control that they want, even though they're not in control of it, but just the knowledge that they need in order to go forward. But I want to get back to when you're looping in somebody else. Feel free to do that unless it's something personal between the two of you. So even if it's somebody who reports to another area, have those private conversations when it comes to things that happened between the two of you. If you don't get any results, then you can go and talk to your manager and explain what's going on. But keep in mind that that the person that you're having this conflict with, they might they still have to hold their head up when they go into their organizations or in their teams. We don't want to, even when they're wrong, we don't want to be the ones to say, you were wrong and this is why you were wrong. In part, that's going to hurt the relationship, even though it's completely true. The relationship is really important, and we're going to talk about that in just 1 second. Actually, you want to set them up so that they can come to you, that they can rely on you, that they can trust you, that you have their interests at heart. Does that help? Okay. And let me see what else is here. We did that one. That is it. If you love someone, then the things that may irritate others is endearing to you. Yes, that's true. That's about the 8-year-olds. Sometimes when you can build that sense of where you're liking that person, you're going to want what's best for them. You're going to have their back. And when you have their back, they're going to have your back. You're now part of the same team. You're together in this, and that can go a really long way. Terry writes, how might a conversation look when it unfolds into water cooler or lateral violence results? That's part of that. That's where we're getting into those vicious cycles, where we're now something was happening between two people, and then all of a sudden other people know about it, and we're now getting fractions in the workplace. And that's something that we, for the respect of everybody, that we have to stop. Water cooler talk. Yeah, thanks for that, Terry. We should avoid things like gossip. If something is true and is known by everybody, that's not gossip. But when we're talking about what we heard from an unknown source, or what she said and I overheard this, we're getting into an area where we're damaging the relationships. And if we can at all stop that from happening, and it takes sometimes a lot of strength of character to say, I'm not getting into that conversation. If you can't tell me with facts who said what and when, and I can go and check that fact, I'll deal with that. But if it's just these hidden agendas that people have, it's really going to hurt everybody. There's no winners when it comes to that. The lateral violence, where one person's trying to hurt the other, then you hurt me back, and then say something else, and there's no trust in those environments. And the challenge for most of us is our careers, no matter where we work, they often follow each other along. So we might be working together now, and let's say we decide, oh, I'm going to move. I can't take it here. I'm going to go and take that position over there. The world is small, and somebody is going to, we're going to end up in the same situation unless we deal with it. Those microaggressions are so true. They can be so subtle and yet so hurtful. We might have, for example, somebody who flies under that radar. They're saying things, they're doing things that can be hurtful. And then when we say, hey, that's not right, I don't accept to be treated that way. What are you talking about? I didn't say that. That's not it. I didn't mean that. And that's what's going to really hurt the relationship. But one thing, and I'll talk about these microaggressions just briefly. One thing that we can do is I've been in the situation where I know exactly how I feel when they say that. I sense it, like we all do. Rather than going back to the person and tell them, look, I really, I think that was unkind. I think that's rude or hurtful. Asking them a question. Ask them, did you mean to be rude to me in that way? And then now you're putting them in a space where they have to defend what they've said, rather than be able to say, no, it wasn't me. And then the good thing about when we're asking them those questions, did you mean to hurt me when you said that? Did you were you trying to be rude? Well, that sounds a little bit too harsh, but when you're asking them those questions, they're going to have to own up to it. Maybe not to you in that moment. They might just say, no, I wasn't trying to, that's not what I meant at all. The idea is now in their head that you're on to them, that you know, and they're not going to continue because they know that you're on to them. Yeah, those you statements. You were rude to me. It can be hard to say that, but asking them, what was your intention when you said my dress looked like it was meltable? I don't know. Asking them, what did you mean by that? Is there another way that we can have that conversation? Something like that can go a long way. But putting it back to them, but not blocking them in. You want them to be able to get themselves out of the situation because the relationship is there. And a lot of this is coming up soon, but I'm loving these questions in the chat box. When there's a lack of conversation, it is good to know something about their interest and start the conversation that way. Absolutely. Is it Andrew or Andrea? Can I say Andy? That's a really good way to approach the conversation, because you're giving them, Andrea, thank you. You're giving them an opportunity to express themselves, you're finding value in them. They're going to be able to find a way to look good for themselves. They're going to feel good. And that's going to be really helpful to build that. The first layer of trust is going to be that openness, that camaraderie. And then the trust is going to be built when they feel that you're on their side. I love that. Thanks, Andrea. I had experience like that working as a summer student physician. I have someone that talks over me all the time and not communicating with me. It frustrates me, but it also makes me feel very belittled, especially when they go around making me to feel worse than being confronted on their actions. You know, I would definitely have that one-on-one conversation in that case. And using some of the questions that we're going to get to in a second, asking them, am I reading this right? Is this what you intended? This is how I felt. Is that what you were intending? And get them to express themselves. That can go a long way. I also prefer when something along the lines of I felt this way when you said that. That can really be helpful. You're letting them know that this is not. You're not necessarily accusing them. You're letting them know your feelings, and so you're being vulnerable. That's going to be their opportunity to reassure you, or to maybe to apologize and to create that better relationship. Thank you so much for those questions, you all. That was really nice. Let's take a look at this. When I was saying about the relationship, the conversation is not about the relationship. The conversation is the relationship. If the conversation stops, the possibilities for the relationship stop. We've limited it. The possibilities for the individuals in the relationship, there's no room for growth there. And like I said, the likelihood that that person is going to continue to be in our lives is really strong. Whether it's at home, at work, in the community, we live in a small world. We are probably going to have to interact with that person again. So if we can make sure that we're respecting the relationship at all possible, that's really going to be helpful. If we can deliver our message without the load, if we deliver it with respect and humility, with clarity, with compassion, that's going to really create a relationship with that person, and we're going to be able to have much better interactions. And the beauty about that is that that's also going to help us create a reputation, so that those instances where people think that they can overpower us and go beyond us, they're going to be limited. When we're standing up for ourselves, when we're creating good relationships based on a positive intention, that goes a long way. People see that, they feel it, and that helps us in so many ways. Sometimes you're going to create that reputation and you don't, it's maybe for you, it's going to become natural, and you're not going to realize the impact that it has on other people. The model that you're giving to other people for respectful relationships goes a long way. So now I want to give you a great model to help you in your conversations. And it's the AIR model. The A is for authenticity. We need to be authentic in these conversations. We need to be true to ourselves. We need to understand if we're looking for an authentic truth, or we have to figure out, am I stuck on my truth without being open? So that's where the vulnerability is going to come into play here. And that's really important. We need to be in control of our emotions. We can do this from the heart with honesty, sincerity, and openness. And think also about if you're being your authentic self and your emotions, sometimes our bodies have a way of getting the better of us. I know that happens to me. My eyes will water up, even though I've told myself, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry, I'm not going to cry. It's okay. It's just a physical reaction. It's not the substance of me or the relationship. It's just the importance that is coming out through my body. The I stands for intimacy. And the intimacy that we need to create has to do with building a common rapport. We can show our care and concern for the situation and for the other person by opening ourselves up, by showing our own vulnerability. We need to consider creating that safe space where we can be equal, where we can show equality among us. We should use open and respectful body language, no power positions. We need to show respect, especially if we want to receive that respect. And the R is for responsibility. And here, the responsibility that we're talking about in taking on these conversations has to do with knowing that we can prepare and lead future conversations in a productive way. We have to make sure that we are helping the other person as much as as ourselves. You're leaders in your community. By the very fact of coming here and wanting to have better conversations, you're leading the way. You're also gaining, through this, you're going to gain the trust of your community, of your people, by showing respect and honesty. You're going to be better able to accept that part of your job is saying no and giving bad news, and how you deliver that with authenticity and with trust is going to go a long way. So that's an interesting model to take a look at. Any thoughts about that one? Keep it in your back pocket. It's just one slide, so when you have access to the slides, keep it handy, and it might help you along the way. But I think that these effective questions are, thanks Hazel, are really at the heart of our conversations. When we're having these conversations, listening is important. It's important to learn. And that's what these conversations are. It's not a lecture that we're giving the person. It's a conversation where we want to learn. As much as we want to share, we need to learn first. And asking these effective questions is going to help us to learn. And it's going to help us identify what we need to know more about. And asking questions allows us to get the more information that we need. And it's going to create that trust with the person so that they're going to feel comfortable talking, because we don't have all the answers. We don't have, we're not pushing our truth on them. We want to hear their truth. So that good tip of listen more, talk less is always really useful. I used to have a director who'd say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen twice as much as you talk. And it's a really good, good tip. Get the other person to do the majority of the talking, and then you can just direct the conversation to the intended result that you're both hoping for. So some of the questions that we have to focus on are, in some cases, you're going to want to ask open-ended questions. And these sound a little bit like, tell me more about your experience, or what do you think about this? As opposed to a closed-ended question, which it can be important sometimes, but where did you teach? Do you believe in this? It's going to be a short, brief answer that we're needing from the other person. Welcome what the other person has to say. Show them that, and you can do that with your words. You can let them know something like, it would be great to hear more about this, or I'm curious about that. When the opposite of sharing that welcome is, what were you thinking? Or why didn't you do this? Now you're putting your expectations on them, and you're not going to be able to find out from them what was going on in their mind when they were thinking that. And really, that's what you want, because if there is some misunderstanding, you need to know what the misunderstanding is in order to clear it up, not just with that person, but going forward as well. If you need specific information, don't lead the person to what you want. So let's say you need a specific information about the statistics. Instead of saying, does she do that very much? Ask a question like, how often does that happen? And get them to say it. In that way, you're getting your detailed response, but you're not leading them to what you're hoping to get. Be neutral. So if you want an honest answer from them, don't lead them to what you are expecting. So ask something like, what might you learn from that? Not, what was up with that? Just be open to what they're going to bring, and using your questions to do that is going to go a long way. And then that last point, respectful challenge. You're going to need to be able to challenge others, but you want to do so while allowing them to maintain their self-respect. That's part of that trust relationship. So instead of saying, are you really sure about that? You can just reformulate that question and say, what evidence do you have on that? Now they're going to be able to provide you what they have, as opposed to being on guard. So that's going to really help the relationship there. This one I love, the fearless advice and faithful implementation. For many of us, this is part of our responsibilities. The fearless advice has to do with, for us, doing our research, looking at the situation, from all of the options, determining our point of view with respect to the other points of view that we could have taken. Understanding the why behind the what. I like this path, and why. That's really what that advice part is going to be required of us. This way, when we're called to give our advice, we can do so respecting that there are other ways to view this, and we substantiate our view with the research that we've done. This is a little bit harder than just picking a side or going along with the majority, but it's our job. It's what we are here for. So there's a few things that can help us in there. And yes, I definitely do want to leave some time for questions here. Thanks for that, Amory. And so feel free to put your hands up. Take yourselves off mute. When you're taking a look at what advice you're going to give, be aware of your biases. Make sure that what you think you know, that it's based in fact, that you have looked at other options. Don't always accept the status quo. Always ask, do we have to do it this way? Is there another way? What are the possibilities? And then for that advice, focus on who you serve, not on the processes, not necessarily on the institutions. We have the systems and the processes. Sometimes they're determined externally to us. But if we're not focused on who we're serving, we may do everything correctly and yet not accomplish or not get the results for our clients. And if our clients, our citizens, or our partners aren't getting the benefits that they deserve, we have to find a way to help them. And sometimes that means finding a way within the institution. or it might mean questioning the processes. When we do that, we need to state our mind, we need to share our opinions, and to promote our recommendations. And then that's where the the faithful implementation comes. When we've done all that, when we've said, we've done our research, we've said what we have to say, when the decision is made, and sometimes it's at a level that we don't participate in, we can ask questions, we can seek to understand. And then once we have that, now we can go forward with that implementation. We know that we've done what we can. We understand why the decision was made, and now this is the other part of our job, to move the organization forward in a way that's determined by sometimes not us. So it's not an empty statement. We have a lot of power in that fearless advice and that faithful implementation. In the resources that you're going to see this Courageous Conversations tip sheet. So they're all here. And I do want to open it up. We have about 10 minutes left, so I won't go over these, but I will leave it up here. I'd like to know if you have any questions, any comments. We have about 10, 12 minutes left. What else is on your mind? Can someone tell me what of these 10 tips, is there one that that really jumps out at them? Caroline?
Hi there. I just wanted to share that I've had opened up a cultural center within a
Caroline, I don't really hear you that well. Could you speak up a little bit?
Oh yeah. Do you hear me now?
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay, sorry. I'll try to stand still. Well, I've just opened up a cultural center within a clinical setting. And what I've done is everything okay? Hello? Am I
Carolyn, you're cutting in a little, in and out a bit. Can you repeat?
Are you there now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll stand here still. I'm just at Costco right now, sorry. I've just opened up a cultural center within a clinical setting, and what I've done is some program development. I've made sure that I've hired like staff that have different views, and so and I really value that because I like to get uh, I believe that everyone has a gifting and everyone can contribute something, and I really try to promote people's own views, and I try to make it so that they're not afraid to come forward with their suggestions. And so program planning, at the beginning, I've just hired like another program developer that I will work with, and I will focus more on the facilitation part of the center, like workshops and crafting, that kind of thing. So what I've done is try to, get people's views and input within program planning meetings. Yeah, so that's just what I try to have this place like as a fun place to learn, fun place to work, and um, just be very open-minded, right? So, and one of the challenges that I've had was, trying to give them the vision that I have, for the center. Um, so right now I'm just doing like you know, the roles and responsibilities for each staff, and putting all that together. It's a challenging time for us right now, so but We'll get there.
Carolyn, thanks so much for sharing. It sounds like you're right on track to have those good conversations, building your team. And when you're developing those responsibilities, if you can do them with the incumbent, that could be really win-win. Getting their input into that would be wonderful. I also love what you said about the diversity among your staff and valuing that. I think sometimes we might see that we love a diverse environment, but we are all supposed to think the same way. Kind of goes against the diversity. And one of the things that we want to value is we don't need to all be completely different in order to have diversity. We need that open-mindedness. We need people to bring their ideas forward and listen to those, the diversity of ideas. Sure, it's nice to have diversity in all aspects, but being open and respectful of what that brings to our teams is that's the win. I'm really happy that you shared that with us.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I had something that I wanted to just kind of bring up really quick here, Jeanette, is the bullet number 4, like assume positive intent. I think that's something that I hadn't really done previously until I've taken a few of your courses now, so I know the checklist a little bit. But it's really hard to get tone and reflection when you're just taking something like via an email or a text message. And sometimes I could be really quick to make that judgment of, oh, I don't like the tone of this email, when that wasn't the actual intent and the tone in somebody as they were typing it up. So going into having these conversations and just trying to bring that positive spin on it first before getting defensive, I think is something that I've really been working on in the past little while as well. And then focusing, and that brings right into number 5 of focusing on the dialogue portion of that conversation as well, and trying to use those like Sue had mentioned in here, that made me feel, or I feel that this came across as, and then start the conversation more and on that positive spin, bring your kind of feelings and stuff into that later on down the road, and then hopefully that conversation doesn't take a turn for the worst after that.
I love that. Thank you so much, Amory. I do think that the focus on the person, on the other person as having a positive intention, that's going to go a long way to breaking down any barriers that we might have. We don't necessarily know, especially from an email, what they were banging on their keyboard when they wrote it. We're reading it with our intention. Or with our view of maybe the relationship. So if we focus on the positive, that's really going to eliminate some of the obstacles in the relationship. And it's also going to allow us to find a way to work better together, for looking for that yes. What in here do we agree on? How can we use this small nugget to go forward? That's going to be the win. And of course, the focus on the dialogue, don't put our words on them. We're here to find more information. And that's really what a courageous conversation is all about. It's looking forward to solutions, not backwards to blame. Thank you very much, Terry. Glenn E. Singleton's book, Courageous Conversations, or Brene Brown's work. Really important information that we can find out more. And where was the Courageous Conversation tip sheet created? This comes from the Canada School, and there's probably a couple of sources in there. So I think that that's probably in the original that you're going to get in the resources. Indigenous teachings. I'm not sure that there's a lot of the Indigenous teachings in some of this content here. There might be some Indigenous ways in how we approach it, but it is a culmination of resources. Yeah. And thank you, Andrea, for being with us. So with that, let me see, where am I? I have one last slide if you have any questions. Otherwise, we've got just a couple of minutes left. And Hazel wants to know, do we get a certificate? I'm not sure about that, Hazel. Thanks again for putting that Survey Monkey link in there, Kaylin. So let me just say that a big thank you to each of you for your commitment and for your contribution to this course. I hope that you feel empowered to take on these conversations and to learn more. And whether it's with some of the links, well, some of the information there, Glenn E. Singleton or Brene Brown's work, that could be really helpful. You're going to get a link or the resources sent to you. Keep in mind also, just a last closing word, this might be hard. You might make mistakes sometimes, but that's okay. Apologize, keep at it, don't give up. The more you do this, the better you're going to become. The more you do this, even with those mistakes and the hiccups, you're creating a relationship. And really, that's what this is all about. It's not about winning the conversation. It's about building the relationship. I'm Mi'kmaq. I'm going to say Emset Nogma to you, all my relations. I thank you for being here. And I hope you got something out of this. Amory, did you have any closing words?
Yeah, just a couple of quick closing comments. And thank you very much, Jeanette. It's been an awesome day again today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to give us this workshop and this presentation. And a big thank you to everyone who attended today. There was a great discussion and great questions and comments posed throughout the whole workshop today. As Jeanette had mentioned, we did record today's session, and once it's downloaded and then re-uploaded to YouTube, we'll send everybody out a link. So that'll come, and then you'll get an email from our info account here at FNPSS with all of the supporting materials Jeanette has provided us. So we'll send all of those out as well. And yeah, I just wanted to wish you all a wonderful rest of the day and hope you can join us again in May when we have our next collaborative learning day. So on that, thank you very much and have a great day. Thanks, everybody.